In Dungeons & Dragons, who is Strongheart? GameMasters here, and several videos back, we asked who Vecna was. Then just a few videos ago, we asked who Venger was. Then Zargon. We've moved through the selection of villains, so I figured that today we'd check out one of the famous legendary heroes from D&D's past. Grab your favorite snack, sit down for a spell, and let's explore who Strongheart is. Would it surprise you to know that Strongheart originally wasn't part of the tabletop role-playing version of Dungeons & Dragons? Well, with the success of Dungeons & Dragons as a game, they started to branch off into other areas in an attempt to bolster its popularity. And while we've recently spoken about the D&D cartoon from the 80s in a previous video, we're going to return to that in a moment, by the way, but another facet of trying to embed D&D into the landscape was a toy company called LJN Toys, under license at that time of TSR. They produced several figures for Dungeons & Dragons, of which Strongheart was among them. Strongheart originated as a paladin, and along with his mount, a good bronze dragon, he would go on to fight the evil fighter Warduke, monsters like hook horrors, and would team up with the mighty barbarian Northlord. When Strongheart came out all of those years ago, the backer card that he was mounted on would read, "The most honest and brave of all types of fighters, this human desires nothing more than a good fight against evil and its ways. Riding a proud charger, this warrior's sword and his good right arm serve to protect the ways of the weak and deserving. Because of his honest ways, he can instantly tell evil wherever he finds it. He can also heal the sick and wounded and stand and fight evil foes that would make others run in fear." Of course, all of that sums up what the wholesome view of a paladin is seen as, but the target audience of this toy was, after all, says right on the box, kids ages 4 and up, which by today's recommendation might seem a little young. I mean, I think 4-year-olds still kind of eat glue in school, don't they? And Strongheart does have small pieces that can easily be nibbled off, not to mention that loose sword. But still, the point of the toy line, just like the cartoon, was to get a young crowd interested in the Dungeons & Dragons brand. Strongheart was an instant success, and as a result, he made an appearance in the D&D cartoon. When the popularity of Dungeons & Dragons cartoon was booming, the creators made an opportunity to tie in the toy line and had Strongheart show up in Season 1, Episode 8, called Servant of Evil. In this episode, our heroic kids, minus Bobby, find themselves taken captive and tossed into Venger's prison of agony. While trapped, they encounter none other than Strongheart, and he has an actual plan for escape. For an untold amount of time, he's been digging a hole, Shawshank Redemption style here, but instead of a poster, it's a big barrel that hides that hole. But with the help of the kids, they manage an escape and eventually reunite with Bobby, the boy barbarian. During an exchange, the kids learn that Strongheart's weapon is a golden hammer, and it's been taken by Venger, so they plot to get it back. Of course, that means going back into the prison of agony. But if we look back at the toy package for Strongheart, we can see that it comes with a sword and not a hammer. So the prevailing thought here was that that showing the sword in the cartoon would lean too close to some form of violence. So instead, they gave him a hammer, a nifty golden hammer, so, he could bludgeon things instead, because that's not violent. I digress. Making their way through the prison, they managed to locate Strongheart's weapon, and through battle after battle, eventually they caused the prison to blow up, as it was actually a part of a very large volcano. And I know that was kind of a convenient plot point. Again, this is 80s cartoon, so you have to give a little bit of freeway there. Sadly, we would not see Strongheart in the cartoon after this episode, but we would see him show up in not one, but 2 supplements for the pencil and paper role-playing game. In late 1983, AC-1, The Shady Dragon Inn was released, an accessory for Dungeons & Dragons which was made up of over 100 pre-generated characters that either players could play as or the DM could use as NPCs. While the booklet revolves around the Shady Dragon Inn, a multi-level inn designed as a hub for adventurers to, well, kind of adventure out from, as mentioned, we're provided many pre-generated characters, and you guessed it, Strongheart is among them. It details him out to be a tall 6'2" lawful good paladin with a strength of 13, intelligence of 9, wisdom of 13, constitution of 11, dexterity of 9, and a charisma of 17. He is level 10 with an armor class of 3 and has 68 hit points. Remember, in AD&D terms, the lower the armor class, the better. But it also lists him as wielding a sword +2, and he wears a plate mail and his winged helmet. The fun part, however, is that we are provided a bit of backstory of who Strongheart is. It reads, Strongheart is a paladin, a lawful good fighter who aids any who need his help. His worst enemy is Warduke. Years ago, the two were friends, but the Heartstone brought out their strongest qualities. Strongheart, aided by Perle and Ringelrun, and those are two more pre-generated characters that are found in this book, escaped unharmed, but Warduke and his friends became twisted and evil. In this blurb, we also hear that Strongheart has a steed named Destrier, and that his sword was given to him as a result of aiding dwarves some time ago, and it's simply called Pureblade. In what we just went over, there were a few things that I'll certainly visit in the future, namely Warduke, but I really think that he deserves his own video. But we did learn of something called the Heartstone, and it is in this adventure that follows next that we learn about it, and a little more about Strongheart. I'm going to keep the storyline of Quest for the Heartstone as spoiler-free as I can. I mean, there are folks out there that may decide to take on the evils found within the Kingdom of Gear, but this module was a direct tie-in to that LJN toy line and that we talked about earlier, and features many of the characters in a similar fashion that the Shady Dragon Inn did, as pre-made for you to play as. But it also suggests making use of those various figures that they produced should you want to have better immersion and visual. And this was their way of saying, use miniatures, albeit the miniatures themselves were roughly 7 inches tall. This adventure was designed for a party of 6 to 8 characters of levels 5 to 10, and it does warn that it should be fairly cleric heavy. There's lots of fights, and healing is going to be very important. Strongheart is presented here with his stats boosted a bit from the Shady Dragon Inn version, but we see that his strength remains at 13, his intelligence goes up from 9 to 12, his wisdom stays at 13, his dexterity also goes up from 9 to 12, but his constitution stays at 11 and his charisma stays at 17. While in the previous accessory he was listed as a paladin, here it depicts him as being a lawful 10th level lord, a fighter. His armor class moves up to 2, and remember again, those days of yore, the lower the AC, the better. And it lists his +2 sword as now being intelligent, allowing it to heal for 6 hit points per day. His hit points are also going to remain at 68. During the remainder of the 1980s and into the early 1990s, the only other appearances of Strongheart that we would see would be in the form of additional toys, a variation of figure size. We might see the occasional sticker, coloring books, trading card, and as crazy as it really kind of sounds, there was also a Strongheart pencil sharpener and Halloween costume. To say that Strongheart was popular back then, that's kind of an understatement. But in spite of the character's popularity, he would suddenly fall into obscurity, at least until 2021 when 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons book came out with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. On September 21st, 2021, we saw the release of Wild Beyond the Witchlight. In this adventure, again, I'm going to try to go easy on the spoilers, but there's an NPC named Elkhorn that has been captured, and he explains to the party that he is in search of his companions, one of which is Strongheart the Paladin. In this 5th edition version, he is not designed as a pre-generated character like what we saw for the older editions, but rather he is depicted as an NPC that you may or may not interact with. Here, he is described as being a fearless seeker of justice, risking his life to ensure that good triumphs over evil. He does not worship a god, but instead devotes himself to an ideal that the world can be spared from evil by those who have enough courage to stand against it. As with previous editions, he remains a lawful good paladin, but this go around, he has an armor class of 20, 55 hit points, and has a strength of 15, a dexterity of 12, a constitution of 13, intelligence is 12, wisdom is 13, and his charisma is 17. His sword +2 that was once named Pureblade has seen a name change to Steel, which has +6 to hit and can dish out 1d8 +4 slashing damage, or 1d10 +4 slashing damage if he wields it two-handed. Plus, he can cause the sword to gleam with a holy light, blinding his target. Also, while holding Steel, he can cast Revivify, which will bring a dead creature back to 1 hit point. Strongheart can also cast Command, Detect Evil and Good, Protection from Evil and Good, as well as Lesser Restoration, Remove Curse, and Zone of Truth. As a reaction, he can impose disadvantage on an attack roll against a creature he can see that attacks another creature that is within 5 feet of him, but only while he's carrying a shield. It would be in this Wild Beyond the Witchlight book that we also learn that Strongheart came to establish what is now known as Valor's Call, a noble adventuring party dedicated to eradicating evil wherever it rears its ugly head. So far, however, the only other depiction of Strongheart in 5th edition is a splash page found in the new 2024 Player's Handbook, in which he also appears alongside other companions. And there's a small blurb in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide that briefly mentions Valor's Call. Because of this character's popularity, I really cannot help but wonder if Wizards of the Coast has future plans for him in additional material that's going to follow in the coming years. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I especially need to thank all of my YouTube members and Patreon supporters, as their contributions have been above and beyond. If you'd like to check out how to become a member or supporter, I'll leave links down in the description and below me here in this little talking box. I'd also invite everyone to join the GameMasters Discord, as that is a great place to hang out when you're not watching videos. Plus, it's also an excellent place to suggest content for these videos. If you've enjoyed today's video, that's a lot of word video in a small span of words. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, please give the video a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I've got a lot more of these Who Is videos planned, and I wouldn't want you to miss one of those videos. Regarding Strongheart, I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that at some point in the 2010s, we saw him pop up in a phone app game called Idle Champions. It did little to add to his lore, but still, he was in there. Oh, and of course, WizKids helped to bring him back as a figure for the 50th anniversary of D&D. It's this guy that I've been kind of messing with during today's video. We went over a lot about Strongheart today, and I think I covered all of his appearances, but in the event that I missed something, let me know down in the comments. If there was a major element of him that I missed, also too, let me know down in the comments. If you hated this video, keep that to yourself, but if you love the video, be sure to tell me, Game Masters, I loved this video and I want more, down in the comments. And until next our paths cross, may your Steel Pureblade strike true.